Hi, I'm Ivan Fairhall, CEO of Mawson Gold. Mawson's listed on the TSX and has gold-cobalt exploration and development project in Finland, a gold exploration project in Sweden, and a large investment in ASX-listed Southern Cross Gold.
Right. Ivan, so very good to see you again. I haven't seen you for a couple of months. Where's the PEA?
The PEA is about a month away. So it's coming together. It's coming together, but we're just putting the finishing touches, making sure everything lines up.
Right. And is there a little bit of the things, despite promising the market that it would be here in Q3, is there a little bit of you thinking, what's the point? We've seen a number of companies put out economic studies, and the market's just gone, whatever. Could you delay it? Should you delay it, or should you just get on with it?
Oh, no, I'm not a believer in delaying studies because you don't like the market that you're delivering them to. People need to understand what we have in Finland. They want to understand how this resource looks as a mine, and that's what the PEA gives us. It helps people understand what we've already found, I should say, and what we will find when we go and explore more. And so that message just needs to be out there. I think if you look at our valuation, there's only one conclusion you can draw, is that people don't understand what we have. And so the PEA is the tool to do that, and that's how we're going to get in front of people.
Right, okay. And what have you been doing since the last saw you? I mean, drilling, desk studies? I mean, because again, I asked the question of how, it's all, what's happening up here in terms of your attitude to conservation, preservation of capital, or a case of saying, look, we've got to be smarter with how we spend our money, for sure. We need to be efficient, for sure. But what does that mean in the market anymore?
Sure, yeah. So, the main thing I suppose that we've been busy on, the technical level, is delivery of the PEA, and also working on the exploration story. And we put some news out about a week ago around the centre of the property, and that's a really important part of the upside story at Mawson. And we're already out in the field starting that exploration process to generate more targets in an area. We've generated the targets. We did a big MAG survey. We generated a lot of structural dominant targets in a part of the property that's never been drilled before, and sits in an 8-kilometre gap between 1 million ounces equivalent on one end and 6 metres at 617 grams a tonne at Rompus on the other end, never been drilled. So we've been moving that part of the story forward whilst we're doing the PEA.
Right, okay. You're a bit of a critic, as I said. Lots of institutional shareholders there. It feels like you're a bit overweight on institutional shareholders at the moment. How have they been sort of stomaching the markets, and what's their attitude to holding on to stock like yours? Have you been talking to them yet? What's the mood?
We've had a few meetings with our existing shareholders, and I think it's fair to say they're supportive. They see the value opportunity in Mawson, notice, yes, liquidity's tough, and I don't think some have money, some don't. I think it's probably fair to say. And so in terms of how they're looking to deploy more capital is a little bit different to looking to exit like a story like Mawson. I don't think that's certainly not been the topic of conversation that we've been discussing.
Right. In terms of institutional, like you're ex-Greenstone, right? So it's a different sort of hold, much more technical understanding. But some of the other funds are looking to kind of shore up their own balance sheets at the moment, have been offloading. And notice you had a little dip yourself up until recently. Was that sort of a known entity to you, or was that just vagaries of the market?
No, not to my knowledge, vagaries of the market. I think if you look at the volumes that were traded, I don't think you see anything significant in there. I think it's a lack of buying rather than an overwhelming amount of selling.
Okay. Quickly, while I remember, Southern Cross, you've got 60% of Southern Cross, ASX listed company. They've been popping out some quite nice drill results recently, and have a bit of cash to do it as well. So, I think you've got a hold period until May 2024 on that one. So there's no kind of cash to be had imminently. But can you tell us a little bit about what they're up to and how they're kind of driving that forward?
Yeah, things are going fantastically down there. Just to remind people, that was a spin out that Mawson did of its Australian assets in May, and building on a discovery that Mawson made. There's 3 assets, the main asset being Sunday Creek, and they're onto some serious grades and nice wide intersections, and I think that's the part that has captured people's imagination of what they're getting rewarded for down there is not just grade but width. In this Fosterville style mineralization, and danger not to draw too close an analog to Fosterville because it's such a fantastic asset, but it's certainly looking like Fosterville and Costerville. It's the right type of it's the same geology, and you're getting very high grades over ounces over half meter type intervals, but you're also getting 5 to 20 grams over 10 to 20 meters, and that's the part. If you think about how these things convert into a mine, I think that's where people are getting quite excited about, and they just keep knocking them out, as you pointed out.
Yeah, I mean, really doing a good job. And I guess it was really to allow me to say the following. You've got about $30 million tied up there. So if I look at that, plus how people are valuing, although you are holding to May 2024, so there's some risk component there, people aren't valuing your assets in the Nordics too well, are they? So is the PEA a kind of big pivotal moment for you, or is it just another step along a journey?
I think it's a step along the journey. I think it's rare that people produce studies that blow people, challenge what completely change the fortunes of the company. I don't think that is going to be the situation here. But what I do think people are going to see in the PEA is it's going to show people why what we have is valuable. It's going to draw out the best qualities of the asset, the way the resource holds together, the way it can be mined, and the costs associated with that given where we are in Finland. And you're going to see attractive mining costs. You're going to see low capital intensity given its location, low infrastructure burden. You've got good recoveries, and they result in a good low taxes, and they result in a good project. And that project will get better as you add more ounces. And that's where we marry the PEA with the exploration story and continue to move the asset forward.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because it's really important, because what you can't have is a PEA come out, people go, oh my goodness, it's hugely disappointing. You're saying it's a step along the way, so you're not trying to, you're not setting people up for, you're not setting yourselves up for failure in that sense, and setting expectations too high. So let's talk about a little bit more about what makes a good project based on some of the drill results that you've seen. So the cost, not just the cost of drilling, but the cost of doing business in country as well. What type of mine could this be if you start accumulating those ounces like you hope to?
Okay, well, first of all, just to touch on your first point, the PEA, it's important that people understand. Some people do a PEA or move to development studies when they're kind of at the end of their exploration journey. They found what they thought they needed to find or could find, and they're like, okay, well, what does this look as a mine? We have done it to advance permitting, because we've already started our permitting and land use rezoning processes in Finland, and it's very difficult to move those forward much further until you can articulate what type of project this looks. And you can define it in fairly rubbery terms, so you're not limiting yourself, but it does allow you to engage formally with the regulators, which we have done, and move that forward. So that was one of our main drivers. And also, I think that there are aspects of our project, like I mentioned before, that people hear about but aren't able to pull all these ideas together. And that's what the PEA does, is it brings all of those things together and expresses them in an economic sense. So, what does a good project look? What is this project sort of going to look like as it grows? Well, you want me to talk about sort of production scales or sizes of plant? I mean,
I kind of what I want as an investor, I want to look at this and think, okay, one, is it actually going to get into production? Because if I want to play that long game, I want to say, well, that's the type of company it is. It's a real company with real people trying to do things the right way, not a promote play where I've got to work out where the hell I bail out of this thing, because it's going to be flipped on at some point. I might get 20, 30%. Uplift if someone's generous in terms of acquisition, or this thing's going to fade away like hundreds of mining operations do globally all the time. So, I'm just going to get a sort of realistic view of what your expectation of how this thing pans out for you in Finland.
Yeah, look, I think if you want to move your company forward, you have to take what you found. Ounces in the ground are only valuable because they get mined one day. In theory, that's how you convert them to cash. You have to mine them. And so what is the path that any company needs to go on? And the PEA lays out a development scenario. I would argue in this case that, as exploration continues to grow, the shape of the project will grow with it. And that's why we're, careful to explain that this is the beginning of the journey, and we marry our exploration strategy with a development strategy. But we have a pretty simple project in a pretty simple part of the world, and that's important as well. And so being able to start to explain what that looks like gives investors confidence around what does the development strategy need to look like. Is this a big thing or a little thing? Is it underground, open pit? Where are the risks? Where should we be spending our money? And also, I think the other thing that people are going to get and how it marries in with your sort of strategy in terms of engaging with investors and raising capital is if Mawson had increased the resource by hundreds of thousands of ounces, took it from 1 equivalent to 1.5 equivalent, what does that mean? If you don't understand what the 1 could do, well, does anyone's view really change when you move to 1.5? When you have a study and you can explain mine life extensions or the ability to scale up a particular thing, add more so you can make it bigger, you can actually calculate the impact on that. And you're like, okay, so what's the exploration spend to test that upside? Oh, okay, geez, and you could add how much NPV? Oh, wow, that looks like a fairly smart return on capital that we can invest. And so it's a tool for us to use to plan our work, raise capital, and deploy that capital in the most efficient way that's conscious of the market and the conditions and what investors are looking for.
Well, absolutely, and it's really, really important in terms of that framing is so important for you at this stage. I mean, last time we spoke, I think you had 5 million in cash. I don't know where you are today, but this PA, you're being quite cautious not to kind of overstate what it could be, but other than it's a function which may allow you to raise capital. And that's the bit that kind of interests me again in this market. And the fact that you're slightly, I would say overweight on institutions. Is this a moment where you could reset that share register somewhat and try and get that liquidity going again when you do this raise? And if so, how ambitious are you? We've seen companies this week go and raise 100% of their market cap because they're kind of confident that they've got what they've got, and we'll take that hit. Others saying, there's no way I'm raising capital right now because it's just too painful. So again, what does it look like for you going forward on the money front? Look,
I definitely think that a PEA, and based on a lot of conversations we're having here, and I've had over the time that I've been involved in the company, is that a PEA and economic studies does get you on the radar of new types of investors. And they're not just institutions. There's other investors, people that want to believe in development stories and back teams to move projects forward, not deposits, projects. And so I think the PEA is going to help get us on more radars and potentially help in future financings and increase liquidity and all those sorts of things. But it's a package of opportunity. We've got exploration, we've got a development story. You can start to marry those two things together. And of course, within the Mawson story, we've obviously got the Southern Cross optionality and the price arbitrage and all of those sorts of things. It's a simple value equation in the sense of you add all the parts together and you compare it to our market cap, and it's a fairly compelling story. And there's lots of ways that it can play out. And so optionality is generally good in these types of situations and in these markets as well.
They are. Just in Finland, with regards to the cobalt component, what is that? Is this a kind of small byproduct of the drilling that you're doing at the moment? There's no sort of meaningful kind of cobalt component to be had, is there? I'm just looking at cobalt prices.
No, it's
ripping.
Yeah, it becomes a relatively small byproduct. It doesn't drive the economics of the mine. It's value accretive, but it doesn't dictate where we mine in the resource itself. The highest grades of cobalt are coincident with highest grades of gold, so we don't have a mine planning conflict. You mine the gold, we mine for gold. Gold pays all the bills. Cobalt's just a nice little layer of profit that goes on top. It's a relatively small incremental cost to take the gold CIL tailings and run it through a flotation plant, and it's really as simple as that, and produce a concentrate.
It's kind of interesting. Like I know you guys have taken advantage of the tools available to you, spinning out Southern Cross is fantastic, and potentially could be a meaningful contribution to your bottom line, however you extricate yourself in conjunction with them. And obviously, Mike will be party to that conversation. But are there other games to be had, like M&A? In moments like this, typically, teams which have got a good, solid background, got market access, like yourself, can take advantage of that and bring M&A on if the PEA doesn't work for you, if the PEA doesn't get the reaction that you want, because you got to move this price. It's been moving sort of sideways since for downhill for a while, and obviously the spin out in May has helped, but we're sort of back to kind of a very sort of flat outlook going forward. So what are the tools available to you to kind of engender some kind of interest if the PEA doesn't do it for you?
Look, M&A is always on the table at all times. We speak to companies all the time, and if it's value accretive to shareholders, and yes, we're grossly undervalued, I would say, but as long as you're doing a deal with someone else who's undervalued or more undervalued potentially, then that can generate value for shareholders. And you evaluate each on a case-by-case basis, and you look at access to capital and do the assets. And we talked about this on a previous call, do the assets complement each other? And provided, if you're going to go and put, my view, just one of the overlying sort of views here is that if you're going to put assets together, you want to make sure that you have better access to capital than you do at the moment. That's a deal that makes sense in this market. You're putting two things together that can't be funded and hoping that they can be funded together. I don't see a strong logic in that. But you look at opportunities like that, when markets are a little tighter as they are.
Right. Okay. And I would say that's a very good version of a standard stock answer that one has to give as a CEO. What I'm trying to, I guess, suck out of you, elicit from you is like, what are the other options that you've got available to you that you're in control of or could be in control of versus we just gotta wait for sentiment in the precious metals space to come back, and then it's all good. We all boats float on a high tide. Is it that? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, you can make the decision to do nothing and wait. You could try to raise capital, as you pointed out, at a high cost, or maybe you can mitigate that through market reactions, or you can be more creative and do deals and access capital in a different way. They're all, there's always a dilution equation that you need to factor in. But at the end of the day, I generally believe you should be moving these assets forward. You need to be disciplined in where you spend your money and on what on, and not sort of do the wrong things, the expensive things when capital is expensive. But moving the project forward, I think, is important. And there's different ways. And Mawson has a lot of optionality given the makeup of its portfolio. And there's more than one way to skin the cat. It's just a little bit too early to say that. We're busy trying to get a PEA out and get some eyes on the stock. It's really our main objective at the moment.
Right. Okay. It may just be as simple as that, getting eyes on the stocks. And right. So in terms of the you've met a bunch of shareholders. What are the types of meetings that you're having for the rest of your time there? And quite frankly, what's their attitude to Sweden and Finland? Do they buy those as jurisdictions, as good business, good place to do mining, good place to work? I mean, do they understand that?
Yeah, look, I think to answer your first question, we're meeting with lots of different groups. We're meeting with corporates, meeting with investors, existing investors, prospective investors, and advisors as well, who are all quite intrigued by our story, and everyone's undervalued. Everyone will tell you that they're undervalued at the moment, but there is a quite a fundamental case there at Mawson you can make around that argument. And so we're mixing. We've got a lot of meetings. It's jam packed with a healthy mix of those people. Now, what do people think about Finland? I think that there's a lot of people out there that do really like the story in Finland. They see it's got huge untapped exploration potential. You see stories like Rupert and Orion that have made big discoveries, and they're just hiding there below this till. We've got 1 million ounces equivalent. We've got a project. There's successful companies operating there. It's a good place to do business. It's a low risk jurisdiction with relatively underexplored and that's attractive to investors because you've got the ability to move projects forward and develop them, combined with like quite a lot of exploration prospectivity, which is a good place.
Okay. It's I think interesting time for Finland, for both Finland and Sweden. Look, I'll let you crack on because I know you've got a jam-packed day over there. You're getting out there, beating the drum and pounding the streets, as it were. So let us know when this PEA comes out. I'll be really quite excited to see what you're presenting to the market, and more importantly, how you're presenting it to the market. So Ivan, thank you for your time today. We'll see you soon.
Thanks a lot, Matt.